Good morning. Thank you for joining our webinar today. I welcome everybody to this Friday's edition of our Unlimited CLE series. Thank you, Dr. Ayodele Oni, for being a part of this. And I'm also grateful to Dr. Mark Igeo for joining us this morning. We're expecting Mr. Dr. Ashaju and the other speaker to join us soon. Well, I think Dr. Ashaju just informed us that he just arrived in Lagos and he will join us within the next 10 minutes. This is ESQ Practical Lawyers Academy. What we are trying to do is to provide unlimited access to continuous legal education for African lawyers. We do this by providing training, webinars on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays on different matter. My head of training, Tosin Shulanke, will provide further details on this shortly. Once again, I thank all the various attendees who have joined and our panelists. I will now hand over to Mrs. Tosin Shulanke to take over from her. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Welcome everyone to ESQ Law Practical Lawyers Academy webinar series. We are very delighted to have you all here. My name is Tosin Shulanke, like was introduced, and I am the administrator and head of training at ESQ Trainings Limited. And like Mr. Larry said, at ESQ Training Limited, our mission is to expand the frontiers of continuous professional learning. We achieve this by providing the highest quality accredited continuing legal education in a variety of formats for African lawyers and businesses. We are also committed to the development of a robust and easily accessible, comprehensive source of practical information and continuous legal education / professional development for African lawyers and their clients, thereby boosting access to justice. So we offer courses across various areas of law, which may be categorized into academies like the Litigation and Other Disputes Resolution Academy, Intellectual Property Law Academy, the Arts, Sports and Media and Entertainment Law Academy, and many others. We have tagged our webinar series, Launch Our Webinar Series, as they are slated to hold at 1 p.m. during the lunch break. They will hold 3 times every week, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. However, in order to accommodate our Muslim participants, the Friday webinars will hold at 11 a.m. After every session, we'll also provide resources in attractive and easily accessible formats for everyone who is interested. We also provide trainings on topical issues. We explore new areas of law for the young and vibrant, areas like fintech, cyber law, power, energy. And I will say that currently, registration is on for our 12-week virtual distance learning course on power. It's titled The Dynamics of Power Contracts, Regulation, Contract Negotiation, Documentation, and Project Financing. It commences on the 16th of February 2021, and trust me, you don't want to miss it. So to get more information about all this, please send an email to o.shulanke@esq-law.com. Today's webinar focuses on the future of energy. The focus of today's webinar is the future of energy. Like I said, we're looking at the types of energy that have been used over time all around the world. And one thing that is constant is that there has been changes over time. And this change has been driven by advances in technology, energy, resource discoveries, energy prices, social pressures, and many other factors. So like I said, the only constant thing is that the amount of energy used has increased steadily over time in different countries around the world. So in today's webinar, we'll be taking a deep and futuristic look at the future of energy in Nigeria. Our lineup of experts will reflect on the state of energy in Nigeria today. They will look at the emerging energy sources around the world, the use of renewable energy and nuclear energy, the reduction of carbon emissions and other environmental considerations. They will also be considering if regulations are keeping pace with emerging trends, and would also provide a prediction as to what energy will look like for Nigeria by the year 2040. So today we have the privilege of networking and connecting with our panelists on the work they do on these issues every day. If you have any questions while the webinar is going on, please type them in the chat box. I am delighted to introduce the moderator of today's webinar. He is Dr. Ayodele Oni. He is an energy projects and commercial law expert. He is also a partner at BLOOMFIELD Law Practice. Dr. Ayodele, over to you.
Okay, very quickly, it's should Nigeria join the immediate transition to renewables, or would pausing at the natural gas bus stop first be indispensable? And I'll tell you what we're trying to achieve. For me, I believe in competitive advantage. I believe that the fact that everybody else is talking about energy transition doesn't necessarily mean our own definition should be same as theirs. So everyone in the Western world is talking about moving to renewables, clean energy, renewables in particular. The ultimate definition of transition is moving to is moving to renewables. But I think that we should take advantage of gas like what Qatar is doing. About Bloomfield. Bloomfield is a law firm, commercial law firm. We advise on various aspects of the law. While we're a full service law firm. Yeah, what's energy transition? In relation to the utilization of energy, is a shift towards the continuous reduction in usage of fossil fuels. Now, gas is also a fossil fuel because it's hydrocarbons, but it's cleaner and it's in a gaseous form. And increase the use of non-carbon energy sources, that's renewable energy, with the intention to have the world's energy needs ultimately met primarily through non-carbon means. Energy transition is a global phenomenon, and it's at the heart, and as at its heart, the need to reduce energy-related carbon emissions to limit climate change. So yes, I'm sort of pro-Trump when it comes to energy, although I'm closer to Trump's views about energy than believing that we should completely do away with hydrocarbons. I think that what we should be doing is to be taking advantage of what the Western world did take advantage of. Heavy fuels, they used heavy fuels for industrialization, for development. But yes, gradually we should introduce and increase renewables, but I don't think it should be a sudden change. The drivers of energy transition are policy and institutional interventions on energy, technological interventions and energy technology pathways, social practices and public values for energy, available energy resources, resource options, and economic considerations. And for me, this is very important. If the Western world could develop with coal, could develop with hydrocarbons, I do not see why we shouldn't take same advantage, particularly gas, similar to what Qatar is doing with their gas, with LNG. Qatar has moved out of OPEC and is primarily now looking at taking advantage of gas. Nigeria is richly endowed with solar energy, with an average solar radiation of 3.5, with what you see a day at coastal latitude of 7 kilowatt hours a day at the far north. Nigeria remains a viable location for solar electricity generation if the right technology is deployed. However, majority of the solar power installations in remote areas till date are for standalone projects like solar water pumps or street lights, vaccine regeneration, refrigeration. Unfortunately, despite the abundance of solar power resources, the availability of solar PV installation is yet to be fully utilized. Yeah, and one thing initially was cost. Initial cost, capex, was high. I mean, that's gradually gone down with China, with options to buy from various sources. Now, the case against energy transition in Nigeria. So, from an energy transition point of view, we've got what it takes from having the base resource. Now, the commercial structure is still a problem. There are 14 solar IPPs that government approved in 2016, and they've not come on stream up to now. So that in itself is a problem. So if that's a problem, then we need to really think through what we are doing in the country. That's one thing that's important. But people would say that there are cases, you've got your own, the argument why we shouldn't transit as fast as everybody else. We should maybe stop at a bus stop, which is the gas or natural gas bus stop. So despite the justifiable drive for energy transition globally, there are strong reasons why energy transition in Nigeria must be a gradual process and not hurried. We are not saying we shouldn't transition. I think we should first start with areas that are not even connected to the grid before we begin to talk about complete energy transition, because there have been arguments that nearly 40%, somewhere between 20 and 40%, depending on which research you read, is not connected, of Nigerians are not connected to the grid at all. So power is required to energize the nation's industrial process. There are, as of today, no renewable energy options which are cost effective of general purpose, such as industrialization and national development, the way fossil fuels are. And a complete discountenance of fossil fuel may not bode well for the country's national development, nascent national development, compared to other countries that have moved along pretty well when it comes to industrialization. Industrial processes remain the most difficult decarbonization challenge due to their high energy use, reliance on heat, and dependence on carbon service as the primary building block for a variety of downstream products. So these show us reasons why we may not immediately, particularly if we are touting industrialization, if we are touting development very quickly, we want to have our own factories, we want to produce our own goods. If you want to do this, yes, there's need to consider any energy transition, but maybe more slowly than others have. Let's start with the rural areas where we're not talking about factories, industrialization, and all of that. Focusing on natural gas from a clean emissions perspective may be considered that it's more beneficial to redirect focus from a heavy dependence on crude oil-based fuels to gas-backed energy sources. Because, like I said, gas is more thermal efficient. That means you derive more energy from the same quantity, and it's cleaner than what you have. For example, you know about government's policy about LPG penetration, so that most people stop using firewood and all of that, and now use LPG, cooking gas, for their energy needs, for food, for cooking. So that's one thing that is important. Okay, that's one thing that is important. We told on my video. That's one aspect that is also important. So burning natural gas for energy results in lesser emissions of nearly all types of air pollutants and carbon dioxide than burning crude oil or its variant. Gas is also a reliable partner for renewable energy sources, providing critical support for wind, solar, and hydroelectricity by helping to match supply and demand. Natural gas is also vital in parts of the economy that are more difficult to electrify, including industrial processes and freight transport. So all of this let us know the benefit of natural gas and the fact that we are a gas province. In fact, we have more gas than we do crude. So it's important that we take this into consideration in what we do. Now, Nigeria, and there's competitive advantage. So we've made significant strides in improving the regulation of natural gas exploration and exploitation in Nigeria. These measures include the issuance of the Nigerian Gas Transportation Network, which was launched on August 10, 2020, as a set of rules. So it's a common set of rules applying to everybody, and it allows for easy access and all of those challenges, and resolves some of those challenges we had with gas transportation under gas transportation agreements, where in some cases, I think pursuant to Section 18 of the Oil Pipelines Act, you might need to go meet the minister to intervene when you have issues with respect to access to gas pipelines. But now with the gas transportation network, you do not need to go meet the minister and the attendant challenges. There are equal access rights, similar rules, uniform rules across the value chain for you to be able to do your gas transportation, whether as a shipper or whether as a transporter. Other anchor programs which support the aspiration of the federal government are the National Gas Expansion Program and the Nigerian Gas Flare Commercialization Program. So all these show the efforts being put into gas, and the fact that you have that competitive advantage is a key thing. So why throw away the baby with the bath water? So it's important that we take advantage of gas, whilst also gradually transitioning to renewables. It's the intent of the federal government that the network code will impact positively on critical sectors of the economy. Because once you can deal with your commercial arrangements, the major challenge with gas utilization in Nigeria and gas monetization is not the lack of gas or insufficiency, but typically the commercial arrangements, whether it's transportation, whether it's tariffs or pricing, those have been the challenges. And you see that a lot is being done with auto gas, encouraging more people to use gas for their generators, for their vehicles, for cooking. Even we are beginning to have conversations around mini LNG projects. Challenges to exploiting natural gas in Nigeria, of course, financing for the development and pricing, inadequate gas infrastructure, security of energy infrastructure, skills gap, and strong institutions and laws. So whilst a strong case can be made for transition to non-carbon sources of energy, Nigeria is currently not in a position to dispense with fossil fuels completely. And it's clear that we can't. Yeah, we could reduce the impact, the effect of carbons and the use of carbons, but we, particularly crude oil, but we need to increase gas utilization side by side with renewables. Also, because even the commercial framework around large scale renewables aren't quite there yet or not implemented the way they should be. For example, there's a refit for tariffs for grid connected renewable power projects, but that's has almost never been effected, and it's never been put to use. A few times they are tried to, everyone screamed that it was way more expensive than what you find elsewhere. So in practice, it's never even implemented. So we still need to do a lot around the commercial arrangements for those. Transition to natural gas provides a cleaner source of fossil fuels, which is capable of meeting Nigeria's industrial power demands. The energy transition in Nigeria must thus be a transition to increase natural gas usage. Now, renewables should initially be used for areas not covered by the grid, like what I said, to increase the electrification rate in Nigeria and provide electricity for rural areas and non-industrial use. Now, for all of this, I've written two very interesting books on electric power and oil and gas, and you'd find many of these analysis, much of this analysis in those books. I encourage you to pick up your own copy. You can reach out to me via email to request a copy. We can have conversations around delivery and all of that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ayodele Oni. Although you are the moderator of today's webinar, so you are supposed to introduce the next speaker and also engage him on his presentation. So I think we would listen to Dr. Mark first. Mr. Sheikh Adaju is in transit. So Dr. Mark, you can please go ahead with your presentation.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak very briefly today. My name is Mark Igeho, and I'm speaking this morning from Scotland. I'm talking about energy transition in Nigeria, and also I see that you're also considering what will Nigeria look like, Nigerian energy sector look like, in year look like in year 2040. So that is the discussion today. Okay, so I'm going to share my slides now. Right, okay, so I'm not going to spend too much time, just make it very brief. Basically, I pursue many things. But I was speaking more particularly this morning from the perspective of what we do in the success of nations and governments, and also from the Aberdeen Commercial Oil and Minerals for Good Foundation, where we look at how countries and governments and companies and the others can best utilize their mineral resources, resources. So that's the perspective from which I'm speaking this morning. So I'm speaking that Nigeria is already undergoing an energy transition. So I'm looking at it from a different perspective. And this is from the perspective that even though we don't realize it or we haven't thought about it, we are undergoing an energy transition already. And the energy transition Nigeria is going through is different from the one other countries are going through, or many of the countries that we typically will talk about are going through. It's a different type of energy transition. It's an unusual one. And in many cases, it's unknown, unhidden. It's not very apparent. But my purpose this morning is to try and bring that just for your consideration. Just for your consideration. So consider this. Thanks to Dr. Adele, he's already talked about energy transition from the global perspective. So I'm not going to say any more about that. So thank you so much. So we already know what energy transition is in the global contemplation, and he's already explained that. And the whole world is talking about energy transition, and simply means, in summary, as he has already described, moving away from, if you like, the concept of dependence on fossil fuel and going into renewables, reusable, and non-fossil fuel. That is the general concept. So we already find that in places like Europe, for example, there is already a date already. I think in the United Kingdom, for example, a date has already been fixed by which you can buy all new cars must be electric based. I think it's year 2030 now. It just came out recently. But you can buy a new car from year 2020 here in the United Kingdom unless it's battery based. So a lot of companies and countries are already doing that. But my suggestion this morning is that the Nigerian energy transition is very different. It's a different type of energy transition. So what do I mean by that? I'm going to look at talk about it in three perspectives, and I'll leave that with you in a minute. In three perspectives. The first perspective is that the world is shifting attention away from petroleum and fossils, as just described, but yet the Nigerian economy, the Nigerian nation, the Nigerian government is completely dependent on 100%, 90-something percent. You can check the written statistics. The GDP of Nigeria is wholly dependent on one product, one sector, and which is petroleum. So that gives you that gives you an interesting dynamic. So the whole world is shifting away from is turning their attention away from the sector, and at the same time, the Nigerian economy and sector and government is completely, almost 100% dependent on this economy. So that's a strange, isn't it? Again, I'm asking you to think about this with me. Isn't that strange? So think about what that means for Nigeria in 2040. That is the date you are looking at. So what will things look like for Nigeria in 2040? Just envision it. I already see that some of the governments, as I see, I read and discuss, are already struggling on their budgets and all of that. So are things going to get better or not? It's just a contemplation, just a contemplation. So that's the first contemplation I would like to for you to consider. So consider some other petroleum-rich nations just like Nigeria, what they have done already. So Dubai, and I think almost everyone here, knows the story of Dubai, and many visit there regularly. Dubai was a dusty desert, location. But what they've done is, they had petroleum, but they had a strategy to quickly move from depending on petroleum, and so now Dubai's economy is now driven more in terms of financial sector, tourism, the ports, which serves their whole area. Is a hub nation for that whole part of the world, and in any way, and in many ways. And so now, petroleum or no petroleum doesn't matter to them anymore. The economy is no longer dependent on petroleum. In fact, you don't hear much about their petroleum. So that is an example of a country that has already transited, that made this journey. So when they talk about any transition, it means nothing to them, no impact, even for the future. Saudi Arabia has just led this journey now. I mean, they are stupendously rich. They have some of the highest petroleum reserves in the world, so they are still rich. The Aramco National Oil Company is the richest company in the world. So, strictly speaking, they don't need to. But now they have also started their own journey as well. And they're looking at it from perspective of encouraging companies to come and set up, and also other perspective they're looking at also is trying also to do some kind of terrorism as well. So they are using many of those countries are using Dubai, UAE as a template, So look at Norway, looking at, because we looked at Dubai and Saudi from countries that have a similar, if you like, background, to Nigeria, post-colonial countries. So those are two. So you can look at them, and they are our peers. What they are looking at. You can also look at Norway, which obviously is in Europe, and so its economy is not wholly dependent on petroleum, but that's also been part of their economy for a long time. So they are also transiting. Now their National Petroleum Fund, Sovereign Wealth Fund, is now going forward no longer going to be investing even in petroleum itself. A country that is so petroleum rich is itself no longer going to be investing in petroleum petroleum assets, so to speak, in terms of investing their stock in petroleum assets. So that just tells you their own type of transition. So again, the question for you is for you to consider. I'm just leaving questions today, not answers, is to say, so what's the direction of travel for Nigeria? What do you think things will look like in 2040? Now we're today 2021. So 20 years from now, what do you think this journey of travel of Nigeria will look like? So that's something to think about, and then another contemplation I would like to leave with you is this. A lot of the countries that are transiting, petroleum-rich countries that are transiting, they are transiting, but they have utilized their petroleum riches, to establish self-sufficient energy sectors. So what I mean is, the countries that where we think about, usually they have independent and self-sufficient power. They have their own power. They have their own petroleum. That was retail petroleum. Petroleum for cars and vehicles and the like, and utilities, gas and everything else. So a lot of these countries, they are rich in petroleum, and what they've done with them is also ensure that they also become, not just potentially rich, but actually rich in the day-to-day utilization of petroleum. So their cars and those like. But what about Nigeria? Have we used our the petroleum resources to create independent and sufficient power? Is power sufficient today? Again, I'm leaving as questions. Is petroleum sufficient today? Do you have refineries that meets your needs, the country's own needs, and can export as well? Utilities, gas and power and all the other things, So again, the question, that's the transition that other countries have done already or are doing. And the question I'm leaving with you today is, what about Nigeria? I'm going to leave that as a question. I don't have an answer for you. It's for you to contemplate and consider what the answer would look like. So that's another transition that is taking place, a strange transition, and the question we're asking is, what's Nigeria doing? Another type of transition, which typically has taken place in many of those countries, is what I call the oil riches, the mineral riches are underground. Even gold and all the like, you have to dig to get them out. So we have a concept when we talk about oil and minerals for good. That's part of the concept we have to say, you take what God has given to you underground, and then you transform it to become riches above ground. So when you look at many of the countries here you look at Dubai, a lot of those things you see on top was created from the riches they got from the ground, and then they used it to transform things you could see above ground. If you go to London and many of these cities here, many of the things you see that we love to see, come over and enjoy, many of those things were built, out of the riches they had when they had lots of their riches, sometimes from minerals, also some from their global empires, but they took a lot of those wealth and used it to create things. Many of those things they can't build today. they can't do today. It's almost impossible for them to do those things today. The riches are no longer as there, and even the capacity to do it. But what they did at the time when they had those riches is to use them to create what you see on the surface. So Buckingham Palace and all of those things, built hundreds of thousands, and they're still there for everybody to enjoy. So the question that I want to leave with you concerning today is, has Nigeria transited its petroleum resources to create above ground wealth in terms of infrastructure, modernization, attractive? Is a question. I'm not here today to give you answers. I'm here to give you questions. All right. So I think I have one more. And one more. This relates to the international oil companies in Nigeria. Since Nigeria discovered oil in 1956, and then started producing in 1958, and so Nigeria, but the actual exploration for oil started much earlier than that, but essentially the industry, started in the late 50s. And this is mainly driven by the international oil companies, and they have wonderful capacity. I used to work for one of them, so I work globally for one of them, so I know the wonderful capacity to do stuff, and they have lots of things to also leave behind. But now we've just gone through a marginal field. Nigeria was going to marginal field licensing round, so gradually we can see a transition taking place already. And that transition is that a lot of the international oil companies are gradually winding down or reducing their level of activity, and they are leaving places. I used to work, for example, in Warri when Shell was the biggest thing in Warri and in Delta, in those parts. Shell has left Warri now, largely speaking. So the question I'm asking for you to consider today is, so you have this transition already taking place. It's taking place already, whether is a transition of a different type. The international oil companies are winding down out of Nigeria. But the only question I'm asking you to do today is, what legacy are they leaving behind? What legacy are they leaving behind? It's a question for you to consider, for you to think about as another type of transition which is already taking place. What legacy are they leaving behind? What is being left behind? I don't know. You probably can answer that question yourself. Then if we go further, that's the last one I want to leave with you. Last question I want to leave you to. Just finally, I want for you to consider two examples. We've talked about Dubai. Everyone knows Dubai, but the country you may not know so much is about Nauru. If you can read it off for yourself, Nauru is an interesting country. They were very rich in phosphate. At one point in time, they were the richest country on earth based on their correlation between their wealth, GDP to the population. But today they become one of the poorest. They were dependent. They had a phosphate, which is used for agriculture, for fertilizer. They had some of the richest resources in the world. Between their colonial powers, and then when they got independence, phosphate is today exhausted. And today the country is completely poor. In fact, the only thing that is keeping the economy going now is that they are not far away from Australia. So Australia uses them as a processing point for the refugees that are trying to get into Australia. So Australia pays them some certain sum every year to use their facilities, to put the refugees instead of bringing them to Australia, they put them there and they use them there. So that's mainly their source of economy today. So 2040, consider what is a question for you today. What will Nigeria, what will the impact of energy transition mean for Nigeria in the year 2040? Because that's a year that have been given to us, the speakers, to look at. So those are the things I want to leave with you. So thank you for the opportunity to speak today, and that's me done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
My pleasure.
I guess we'll be moving on to the next speaker now.
Okay, Mr. Adaju is going to be the last speaker for today.
Okay.
Mr. Adaju, can you unmute your microphone?
Okay, yes.
Yes, I'm ready. Can you see me now?
Okay, sir. Okay, yes, we can see and hear you. Please go on, sir. Good morning.
Yeah, my apologies. Right. So good morning, everyone. Yes, still morning. Thank you for inviting me to this meeting. So basically, I don't have a presentation to share. I wasn't informed that there will be some form of slide presentation. And since I'm on transit, I'll just speak through and share my thoughts about the topic. Okay, so basically talking about energy, Dr. Edeli and the last speaker, I listened to some parts of the presentation, although I was going off and on. But I will speak from the perspective of an energy user to start with. Also, an energy project developer and an investor, and basically as a consultant also. And then I'll just try and share some practical experiences that I've had this space. I've been in this space for about 10 to 11 years now. I mean, I was a former banker, and I saw some opportunity in this space, and then delved into the energy sector. So when we talk about energy transition, basically this is a global occurrence. Okay, so let me just quickly wrap it up. So let me look at the Nigerian situation and my experience in the past couple of years. For me, as a practitioner, I would have loved if Nigeria can actually power itself with the enormous gas resources it has. Gas definitely is cleaner than other fossil fuel sources like coal, and although subject to arguments. So gas, we have it in enormous quantum, but highly underutilized. If we have enough, if we can power Nigeria by, majorly by gas, it will be cheaper. It's in Nigeria in terms of infrastructure and the maximum that currently, if I'm correct, although capacity of about 13,000 megawatts, but we cannot transmit. So if you rely on, you will have to develop a transmission network of Nigeria. We have to deal with that first. How do we, over half of Nigeria, how do you megawatts, right? There is stranded power, about 2,000 megawatts currently. And we can only send about 5,548 megawatts, if I'm correct, to end users because of the state of the grid. So it's also an issue. So it's the same thing of saying that, look, why wait for everybody to have a landline before they jump on the mobile phone revolution? It's because the infrastructure to lay to everybody's house to have a landline will almost be impossible. I think it's the same argument for energy transition in Nigeria.
We did make some sense of what you said, and we're very grateful. We would like to convert this to a conversation, and I'll be asking Dr. Geon some questions. I don't know if he's still on. Dr. Mark, are you still on, sir?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, with everything you've said now, from a Nigerian-centric point of view, what are our choices? You've asked several questions. Now I'm going to ask you questions. What are our best choices? From a Nigeria-centric point of view, what are our choices from everything you've said now, realistically?
Thank you so much for the question. Indeed, what are our choices? One thing that is so encouraging is the power of making choices and making right choices. So even as we speak right now, those questions they're difficult to answer right now, but it's possible if we make choices now, hard choices, good choices, to begin to use these questions as a blueprint to say this is what we want to do. So we say, we know that the world is transiting, so that's a given. the transition, all of the other things like, even Nigeria, we have a lot of, I know there's a lot of sun people using solar and all of that already. So that's a given. So that's let all that effort keep on going on, but then take some other direction to say, what are we going to do? We have, I don't know how many years that is still left of, if you like, of the height of the riches. What are we going to use that to do? What are we going to transform? So I think it's for the elites, the elites in Nigeria, to come up with a direction for the country. I know there's a lot. I know they talk about energy. Was in the political space, they're talking about restructuring and all of that. So I think this should be part of the restructuring discussions to say, how is this country going to be? How is the country going to be restructured? Realizing that the whole game is changing, whether we like it or not. And so we don't want to. Nigeria doesn't want to go like Nauru that 20 years time becomes a basket case and begging for resources from other countries. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know if that answers the question. What I'm saying is the elites, need to make some quality choices, some strategic choices for the future, how they want the country to go to, realizing these challenges that were described today.
Thank you very much. If we were to borrow from elsewhere, what 2 or 3 choices would you recommend? What we've seen elsewhere, the good, the bad, the ugly, Nauru and such other countries, even in Indonesia, a number of other countries. What are things? What's the bad we should avoid? I mean, we've made bad choices, made mistakes. I mean, we probably should have used our oil wealth for infrastructural development, like you stated. So many should have been done 30, 40, 50 years ago that should be enduring now. So we've missed that train. The train already left the station. What, as things stand, what are some of those choices, looking at what's been done elsewhere and the circumstances we find ourselves and the world? What are some of those choices we can make? 2 or 3 choices we can make, 2 or 3 things you think we should avoid specifically at this time?
Okay, so it's hard to say one copy one country. I don't believe in countries copying other countries, but it's to do it. I mean, but then of course you take lessons. You look at what is around and take some lessons and take some worthwhile steps. I mean, one question which even now hasn't yet been fully answered, this question of power, the power sector. The power sector as it is right now, so currently is designed right now. There was the transition from the government-led sector to a private sector-led sector, but really it's not. Now I'm looking at it from a distance, so I'm not criticizing, but from what I see, you look at the results on the ground, there's still not much power, electricity around the country. That means that sector is not working. So that needs to be one. So there needs to be a very, very clear-eyed thinking. Rip up, see what's going on right now, and look at the whole sector again and take some hard decisions, and don't delay. Some very hard decisions taken by people who are knowledgeable, who are smart, who have the best interest of the country at heart, and just go for it. Just go for it. That is talking about power. The second aspect is what utilize creating the petroleum economy, so to speak. Thank God for the Dangote refinery that's coming up along, in another couple of years, so that we obviously, at least, keep Nigeria to certain level. I believe some level of self-sufficiency and maybe even export. So then, but then they still talk about the Nigerian refinery, the government refineries. So, and that's been going on for a long time. It's not really worked fully. So the question is, what are they going to do? So again, there needs to be a very, very high level, sophisticated, strategy, national strategy for that whole sector, gas utilization, gas power and all of that sector as well. And then I talked about the whole concept of what the legacy is going to be left behind. We all agree. I mean, even that the effort to develop the Niger Delta, which is a cash cow, or the home of resources thus far. Now there's new resources coming up elsewhere now. Has not happened over 60 years, you know. And so that means the legacy of an oil-rich region that has benefited from it itself is not there right now. You know, it's not there right now. So again, some hard thinking needs to be done to say NDDC and all of that structures, they're not working. They've not worked for 60 years, you know. And so the elite needs to sit down and say, what do we want as legacy? Now the international oil companies, they have the good thing about them is that they have a lot of capacity. They have a lot of capacity. They work across nations, so they can help the government to do a lot. You know, so again, before they finally wind down to the point where they can't make much, that decision needs to be a lot of decisions needs to be taken as well regarding things like the commissioning of oil and gas installations. Till now, there's still no direction on how Nigeria is going to do with the commissioning. So that means there's a risk that at the end of the day, the Nigerian government will be left to pick up all the pieces of the cost of removing these used installations, or be left in the hands of the smaller marginal field operators who may not have resources to do that. So again, a lot of open switches for them to think about. Yeah. I think the answers are pretty easy to get to. More question is if I use the elite not just because it's not just a government issue, it's not just a governmental issue, it's a collective decision that to be made by all the influencers and decision makers to say this is where they want the constitution to go at. So as they're talking about politics, they're talking about restructuring. I think they should add all of this to the whole agenda. Otherwise, you can have a country but no money.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Very interesting. Yeah, one or two more questions. Your views. Let me find out. Is Dr. Adaju available? Dr. Adaju, are you still there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes. What are your thoughts? What should be the way forward? 2-3 solutions. From particularly when you see what's happened elsewhere, those who have taken advantage and those who haven't, like Indonesia, like Nauru. There's another country I can't remember just yet where they've got a lot of oil and gas, but they're in crisis at the moment. What are those things we need to avoid? And what are those 3 things you think we need to do and 3 things you think we need to avoid to be able to make progress? I think we've missed out on major infrastructural development we could have done 30, 40 years ago. But as things stand now, as the world is, what are those things you think you can still do whilst transitioning? And whilst the world transitions? Yeah, go on, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Ayodele. Yes, well, we still can't probably run away from building the infrastructure. So, for example, gas infrastructure is still very, important. Gas will still be a major mix of our energy. Currently, I think it's about 80% of even the 5,000 or 7,000 megawatts that we're generating. So how do we develop appropriate infrastructure to make access to, gas available so that we can catch up even with the built-up capacity we have already, over 13,000 megawatts. Okay, so that's very critical. The second will also be around infrastructure, which is the grid. So we need to also strengthen the grid. We need to enhance the capacity, the transmission capacity of the grid. The advantage is that it enhances, number one, energy access, so we can reach more people. I think by government policy, 2030, I think it's about 90% energy access that is being planned. I'll check the figure here. So this infrastructure also needs to be in place to be able to achieve that. And even it will also help the development of renewable energy sources. For example, you mentioned feed-in tariff. Currently, excesses cannot be exported to the national grid because there are no net metering regulations and framework in place. So having the infrastructure of the grid enhanced and also creating, a robust environment for people to sell access to the grid, that will also help. Then the third is to focus basically on this energy mix and look at a lot of distributed power generation. We can't rely on that super grid any longer. I think Germany has almost is also decentralizing its grid. Maybe we begin to have regional grids and even having distributed power solutions everywhere. For example, there are concepts of undergrid mini grid. So where you have a mini grid that is generating power, and then you can sell to the main grid that is located in that community. Okay, so that energy transition, the energy mix with Nigeria still also needs to be on that train. We cannot rely on even one source. Even if we have excess gas and we can power Nigeria with 100% gas, for energy security, you cannot. It's not advisable. So if anything happens to gas, that means you're going to completely shut down. Then when you have energy mix and one source is affected, then you can switch in between the others. I think sometime early last year I was in Germany, and at a particular day, the wind was doing about 20,000 megawatts. Solar was doing about 19,800 megawatts. And then that also includes even the other facilities that they have. Okay, so that's maybe some of those recommendations I will have for Nigeria to consider.
Okay, thank you very much. What do you think, Dr. Ihel, gas versus renewables? Is there a middle point?
So, I mean, for a Nigeria perspective, we don't really have no choice but to do both, in the sense that we are rich in gas. So we need to keep on, as well as monetize the gas from international perspective, sales perspective, but also, create an infrastructure in country to allow gas to be well utilized. Imagine if factories are able to use gas, rather than depending on diesel and petroleum, or that would significantly help the industry. So the domestically, that effort to create a domestic economy, at least manufacturing and the like based on gases, is so fundamental, and then at the same time, renewable is the future. So we've got to use two together. There are areas where use renewables makes great sense, like those who live in villages where it's going to take ages to have any type of grid get to them. You can use renewable as to create mini hub, or areas where they use if it's sun is wind or the like, so they can create their own depending, and then they can then have a mix between that and fossil, whether it's petroleum or gas as well too. So you can use that to create solutions all across the countries. Yeah, so I think it's just to use them smartly. That's what I would suggest.
Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Daju, what are your views on energy federalism?
Okay, so
touted, yes. What are your thoughts on energy federalism?
Yeah, thank you. Maybe before I jump on that, I'll say thanks, Dr. Mark. I also want to really add that, I mean, for me, really the transition that I see is actually moving us away from the likes of generators, both diesel and petrol, to gas and renewables. I mean, that's really the transition that I think we are talking about. Because currently, the capacity of generators in Nigeria, I understand, is about 20,000 megawatts. I mean, pounding away every day. So if we're able to even transit from that to gas and renewables, I mean, that's a major win.
True.
Spending $14 billion every year to buy just fuel. So that's an addition. So I certainly agree with you, Doctor. Now on energy federalism, yes, and that's where I mentioned the issue of maybe regional grids. I think power, and Dr. Oni can correct me, power should be on the concurrent list. So, for example,
yes,
Lagos State has some IPPs.
Yeah, it's on the concurrent list.
Lagos State,
item 13
exactly.
and 14.
Lagos State has some IPPs that were developed some years back. So each state can also begin to look at which area can they, provide energy. Maybe states and local governments should also do more of the mini grids, because it's actually their communities that are not connected to the national grid. So I don't believe that, even the constitution, like you mentioned, has already created that energy federalism, where federating units can intervene in some areas. So regional hubs, regional grids can begin to help do this more. So we look at resources in places where they are abundant. For example, the solar resource in northeast of Nigeria, the likes of Borno State, is similar to Rajasthan in India. Why can't we have solar farms all over the place? Maybe even exporting power to Europe, like maybe Morocco is doing with concentrated solar power. And then you go to the southern part of Nigeria. Is it biomass? Do we have any wind resource? Might be limited. So I think that's exactly what I think we should be looking at. So I believe in that federalism in the true sense of the word. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Dr. Igain, do you have any additional thoughts in this respect?
No, in fact, it was very illuminating hearing yourself and Shegma Adagu, sharing your thoughts indeed. So I think we're all aligned on pretty much what can be done and what should be done. The question is, it's just that some decisions need to be made at the level of the elites who decide the affairs of the country to look at these issues and tackle them. So thank you so much for the opportunity, and it's been good talking tonight.
Thank you very much. I think that will be it, Tosin. I think I hand over to you now, except anyone has got any additional questions. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. It has really been a very interesting conversation. And I'm sure that our participants will agree that it has been very interesting. I can say that it's been really robust, very insightful, and we can see that our speakers are, very knowledgeable in this area of energy. And we are really grateful to you all, to Dr. Ayoni, Mr. Segun Adaju, Dr. Mike, Dr. Mark Igain. We are really grateful that you took out time to prepare for this event, and you also, out of your busy schedule, Mr. Adaju was in transit, and in fact, just as the program was going to start, was when he landed, and he still made out time to attend the webinar. So we are really grateful, and we really appreciate this. We want to thank our sponsors, J. Elias & Co. and Advocate Law Practice, for making this webinar possible today. And also our audience, really want to thank you for making it a date with us today. Please note that our next webinar series is on corporate governance in 2021. It will be coming up on Monday, the 25th of January, 2021 at 1 p.m. So we look forward to having you all there as well. And like I mentioned earlier, you can see how interesting today's power conversation is. And we have a training on power, which is, registration is ongoing at the moment. It's a 12-week virtual distance learning course, and it's titled The Dynamics of Power Contracts, Regulation, Contract Negotiation, Documentation, and Project Financing. It commences on the 16th of February, 2021. So to get more information about this, please send an email to o.shulanke@esq-law.com. So thank you all once again for making it a date with us, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, Dr. Ayodele and Pastor Mark Igain. Please, for everyone on this platform, Dr. Ayodele has published a book on power. I will encourage you all to try and get a copy of the book. It's an authoritative book on power in Nigeria. I encourage you to get a copy of the book. I think it's 25,000 naira. Dr. Ayodele, am I right? Hello, doctor. If you want to get a copy of the book, you can send us email and we'll connect you to how you can get a copy of the book. Thank you very much, and see you again next week for another round of our launch hour webinars. Thank you. Bye.